Good morning, brethren.
Good morning.
Welcome to Sabbath services here in the Elmira congregation. I think Mr. Kester picked 55. I think he's the first one to pick it since they changed that hymn. I didn't recognize that. It used to have a different tune to it. Well, certainly a pleasure to be here. Good morning to everybody. We are about ready to enter what I might consider one of Satan's favorite seasons, Halloween. So what I'd like to do is spend a little bit of time talking about Halloween and demonstrate how Satan does try to deceive us as a nation, as a people, and really how he really enjoys these dark holidays, because Satan really is all about darkness versus Jesus Christ, who's about the light. So what I'd like to do is begin by talking about an organization called Relevant. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of this. Actually, Lori brought this to my attention this week, and it really seemed to fit in what I was thinking about regarding Halloween. It says Relevant reaches more than 5 million readers a month through the print and tablet magazines, relevantmagazine.com, Relevant TV, and the weekly Relevant podcasts. Here's how they describe themselves. They say, "We are Christians seeking God and striving to impact the world around us. We are people who want to live well, outwardly, spiritually, creatively, and intentionally. We are daily seeking to show how God is at work in the world and in our generation. We try to publish ideas that break stereotypes, challenges the status quo, and spur a generation to know God and impact the world." So far, it sounds pretty good. "We want to engage a deeper conversation about faith and help people see God outside the box that they put Him in. We believe a lot can be learned by looking more deeply at things that may challenge you. We believe in a dialogue about truth, about faith, and about culture. Christians can't be complacent living in a Christian bubble and never engaging the world in which they live. We also believe in the importance of the church. We want to be catalysts for change. If you're at this website," obviously this is printed on the website, so if you're at this website, you're probably on a spiritual journey. Christianity is not a destination. No one has it all figured out. And because of that, you'll find that articles in Relevant may ask questions a lot of others will not, which means something we feel is vital to our spiritual growth. We never stop pursuing truth and authenticity with passion. We believe that eternal life and that the only true freedom is found in Christ. We believe a relationship with Him changes things forever. You are not the person you used to be after you find Christ. You may not be perfect. We're all sinners. But you don't live the way you used to. Jesus told us to be in the world, yet not be of the world. We're supposed to stand out and make a difference. We're supposed to live for something bigger than ourselves." And then they close by saying, "For more information about Christianity, we recommend checking out the Bible. It is the source, after all. And finding a good local church where you can meet other people like you." On the surface, it sounds pretty good. This particular group of Christians, they seem to understand the importance of having a relationship with Jesus Christ. They seem to understand that they need to have a relationship with God the Father. They tell us that once you come to know Christ, that your life changes forever. We probably would agree with that. They encourage their readers to know God, impact their world. They even tell us that we are to live in the world, but not be part of it. They encourage the readers to grow in faith, in truth, and believe in the church. The group understands that we all sin, that we need to strive to know God and follow His ways. They even reference at the end that we really need to go to the Bible for the true source of information about Christianity. Almost sounds like it could have come from maybe the UCG website or one of our publications. For the remainder of the sermonette, what I'd like to do is take an article that was written in Relevant and compare it to what we know about Halloween, taking it from what they tell us to do, going right to the Bible for the source. Before I actually read the article, I should probably share with you that Relevant is not a church. It's not a church. They are a group of Christians, but they are a for-profit company that writes articles for 20 to 30-year-old Christians, and I'll put that in quotation marks. They pride themselves on discussing topics that other Christian magazines will not touch. The title of the article, Why Christians Can Celebrate Halloween. How the church can take advantage of the opportunities Halloween provides. If that doesn't catch your attention, I don't know what will. What kind of opportunities does Halloween provide? So I could probably stop right there and say, clearly this article is not something that we would believe in, nor that we should partake in. But I think it sets the tone for how Satan is so crafty. How he can really entice those that truly do not know the Bible to buy into some of his holidays. So what I'd like to do is just go ahead and read some of this article, and then we'll dig into the Bible. It says, Texas is called the buckle of the Bible Belt. And if Texas is the buckle, Dallas is Mecca. We have not just a church, but a mega church on every corner. If you've been to Texas, you know that that is true. If you've been to the Bahamas, Freeport, that is very true. When we took a tour of the island when we were at the feast, there must have been 2 or 3 churches on every street. When we asked why there were so many churches, the lady that toured us around said, well, church is big business in the Bahamas. Apparently, if you agree to open up a church, the country gives you land to build the church. And then that is income, a source of income for the so-called pastor of that particular church. So there literally is multiple churches on every street in the Bahamas. So needless to say, this shapes the culture of the area, and it shapes the local church culture as well. If we were to drive around town this time of year, you would see banners, flyers, and signs with blinking lights advertising fall festivals at nearly every church. These festivals, while not really celebrating the fall, are advertised as an alternative to Halloween for families, which begs the question, should church boycott Halloween? Again, sounds like it's a pretty decent article so far. Somewhere along the way, a significant population of the church decided Halloween was evil and should not partake of this pagan holiday. So in an effort to be in the world but not of the world, we secluded ourselves from the greater community. I know we've already talked about what are we doing Saturday night so that we're not home when all the ghosts and goblins come rapping on your door. It says every Halloween these Christian communities go running to their sanctuaries to escape the devil worship in the form of 5-year-olds dressed up as Power Rangers. No scheme of the devil could be more insidious than this. At this point, some well-intentioned person would love to tell me how Halloween came into existence. That its origin come most likely from the Celts who believed Halloween was the day when ghosts, spirits, and fairies were more likely to be seen than any other day of the year. Point taken. Just remember how we celebrate Christmas. The tree inside with the lights on our house, and the stockings above the mantle. They all have pagan roots as well. December 25th was originally a holiday celebrating the god Nimrod in a similar fashion of trees, lights, and stockings. Again, still, for the most part, on track here. As with every other holiday, the question becomes, how can the Christian community celebrate it rightly? Well, the answer to that is, don't celebrate it at all, clearly. In some parts of the church, October 31st is celebrated as All Hallows Eve, the day leading up to All Saints' Day. For others, they have Reformation parties celebrating Martin Luther's posting of his 95 Thesis. While both of these are certainly worthy of being celebrated alongside Halloween, I don't believe they are the answers to our questions. In our increasingly fast-paced society, we see less and less of our neighbors. When you live in a high-rise in the city or your closest neighbor is a mile down the dirt road on the left, we are more disengaged with society than ever before. As my wife and I gear up for the birth of our first child, go to work, care for our dogs, work out, and basically just live life, it becomes increasingly difficult to take time to engage with our neighbors. Here they're starting to appeal to our emotions. Halloween is a once-a-year opportunity. Once-a-year opportunity. Where everyone is out and about. Boy, what an opportunity. Children with parents in tow are running door to door for the next bit of free candy. The cranky old man turns on his porch light and gives out candy by the handful. Not to mention, somewhere in the neighborhood, there is a party. What if the church stopped being afraid of the world on Halloween and began to engage in it? Here's Satan's deception right here. There is a church community I deeply love who has redefined how they interact with Halloween. Instead of retreating to a shelter of the building of their homes, they engage with their neighborhoods. Their children get dressed up. They go door to door asking for candy. We sit on our front lawns talking with our neighbors. They have decided that Halloween is just another day. They have decided that Halloween is not just another day. Rather, it is the one day of the year when all the neighbors are out in the streets. Therefore, they have a unique opportunity to interact with everyone. Nice, neat package, huh? Sounds like, man, why in the world would we not participate in such a beautiful holiday? Why would we not engage with our neighbors? After all, Christ does tell us that we are to love our neighbors. This article would have you believe if you're going to love your neighbors, you better not seclude yourself on Halloween. Brethren, it's certainly clear that this article contains a lot of false information. It's certainly not based on what we read in the Bible. I would guess that Satan is probably extremely pleased with the folks at Relevant and the author of this article. He's really wrapping Halloween up in that nice, neat package that Satan really needs to sell to the world. So what I'd like to do is, with the short time that I have left, is take a look at why we really should not be participating in Halloween, in a contradiction to what Relevant is telling us. As with Christmas and Easter, we can certainly trace Halloween back to pagan roots. The Encyclopedia of Religion says this about Halloween. It says, Halloween, or All Hallows Eve, was the original name for it, is a festival celebrated on the 31st of October, the evening prior to the Christian feast of All Saints' Day. Halloween is the name for the eve of Samhain. It's actually Samhain, pronounced Samhain as it tells me here. A celebration marking the beginning of winter, as well as the first day of the new year within the ancient Celtic culture of the British Isles. Concerning Halloween, the Encyclopedia of Religion continues and says, on this occasion it was believed that the gathering of the supernatural forces occurred as no other time on the year. The eve and day of Samhain were characterized as a time when the barriers between the human world and the supernatural world were broken. A pleasant thought. Otherworldly entities, such as the souls of the dead, were able to visit earthly inhabitants, and humans could take the opportunity, there's that word again, opportunity, to penetrate the domains of the gods and the supernatural creatures. Samhain acknowledged the entire spectrum of non-human forces that roamed the earth during this dark period. On this particular holiday with the Celts, they would put bonfires on top of the hills, and this was used to scare away the evil spirits. The souls of the dead were supposedly meant to revisit homes on this day. It really has a sinister significance this day, with ghosts and witches, hobgoblins, black cats, fairies, demons, all of those dark, evil things that we see that are starting to come out now for Halloween. I was looking at the rummage sale thing back there, and costumes here at the rummage sale were 50 cents. So you go into the stores and you see all the Halloween costumes. Then another funny thing, belts. Nice belts, 50 cents. Others, a quarter. Thought that was funny. So the belts nobody wants, you can have for a quarter. Nice ones for 50 cents. So in addition to Halloween, it was thought that it was a very favorable time for prophecy, looking into the future. It was connected to luck and health and, again, a lot of death. As with Christmas and Easter, the church leaders adopted this ancient celebration to serve their own purposes. We know that a lot of the pagan festivals were brought in by the church to try to bring people into the church. They would kind of mix the Christian festivals with the pagan festivals and wrap it up into a nice holiday that we should celebrate. Again, all Satan's work. Brethren, Halloween clearly has a focus of the demonic and supernatural world. If you would, turn to Leviticus 19, verse 31. Leviticus 19 in verse 31. Here God specifically instructs us to avoid all of the things that are connected to the holiday of Halloween. It says, regard not them that have familiar spirits, neither seek after wizards to be defiled by them. I am the Lord your God. In Deuteronomy 18 verse 10, we continue to read about some of the things that we see in Halloween that we are not to partake of. In Deuteronomy 18 verse 10 it says, there shall not be found among you any that makes his son or daughter to pass through the fire, or that uses divination, looking into the future, pulling out the crystal ball per se, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with family spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer, somebody who tries to bring evil spirits back from the dead. For all that do these things are an abomination to the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord your God does not drive them out before you. Brethren, we all know some of the customs of Halloween, bobbing for apples. Apparently that was rooted in predicting future marriages of those that actually get an apple. Actually, I didn't know that until I read that. It was in one of the Good News magazine articles. The jack-o'-lantern, which was used to ward off evil spirits. We'll see those all over the neighborhood. It was also used to represent a watchman on Halloween night. Or it was also used to represent the supernatural man that was caught between the supernatural world and the real world. A lot of evil, dark things associated with the jack-o'-lantern, the pumpkin that we carve. The idea of trick-or-treat. Is that keeping with God's law to love your neighbor? Give me a candy bar, I'm going to smash your pumpkin. Love your neighbor, huh? Toilet papering the trees. Egg in your house. My assistant principal a few years ago had his whole tree toilet papered. Funny thing is, all the neighbor kids went to our school, so we knew who they were. But again, is that idea in keeping with God's law and loving your neighbors as that particular article would have us believe? Just as the other pagan holidays that gained a foothold in the Christian world, Halloween really is no different. One author surmises that the All Saints' Day was established to commemorate the saints and the martyrs of the Roman Catholic Church. Supposedly started with some Christian roots. But obviously history shows that Halloween, this pagan holiday, is really trapped with death, with demonism, with dabbling in the supernatural world, something we should not do. This Christian festival, the Feast of All Saints, commemorates the known and unknown saints of the Christian religion, just as Samhain had acknowledged the paid tribute to the Celtic deities, or the Celtic gods. Again, we should only have one God, we know that. The Catholic Church, in its attempt to bring people into their church throughout history, is, as I said, blended all of these customs into what they would call Christian holidays. This blending of cultures and practices into the church goes completely against what God teaches us. If you turn to Deuteronomy 12, verse 30. Deuteronomy 12, verse 30. As we begin to wrap up. It says, take heed to yourself that you be not snared by following them. Referring to those in the world. After that, they be destroyed from before you, and that you inquire not after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? Even so, I will do likewise. Here God tells us it doesn't matter how they serve their gods. We're not to partake of that. In verse 31 it says, you shall not do so to the Lord your God, for every abomination to the Lord, which he hates, have they done to their gods. For even their sons and their daughters they have burnt into the fire to their gods. What things soever I command you, observe and do it. We are to do what God says. And then he finishes up with this. You shall not add to. Where in the Bible does it tell us to celebrate Halloween? Where in the Bible does it tell us to... It's an important point. I'll say it twice. It doesn't. Thanks for asking. It doesn't tell us. And if we read right here, it says, do not add to. And do not take away. Brethren, there are many in this world that are working to deceive us and coerce us into following the ways that Satan would have us follow, rather than what God would have us follow. Satan's going to begin working overtime. Nights are going to get longer, it's going to get dark. People get depressed during this time. These are the times when we can fall away from God just because of that depression and that type of thing. That's when Satan preys upon us. We've come away from the fall holy days. It's a long time before we get to the spring holy days. This is Satan's season, brethren. We are not to get caught up in the darkness that he would have us get caught up in. So we shouldn't be on our porches next Saturday night, chatting with the neighbors, handing kids candy so they don't toilet paper our trees. Pick the toilet paper up the next morning if it happens. But we're not to partake of that. Brethren, when magazines and groups like Relevant tell us to keep Halloween because it's the nice thing to do, what do? We turn to the Scriptures. And we can show that Halloween is not in there. We're not to add to, we're not to take away. And it clearly tells us that we're not to dabble in the spiritual world. If you turn to Ephesians 5, verse 11 for the last scripture. I think this kind of sums it up when we talk about Halloween. Ephesians 5, verse 11. It says, "And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness." I can't think of a worldly holiday that is more dark than Halloween. "And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them." Brethren, Halloween is a very dark celebration with very dark roots. We need to draw near to God and stay clear of Satan that would love for us to be part of his dark world.